person came to Facebook and said they would not attend until there's a white heritage banquet. What is your comments about that?
That gentleman, and it's unfortunate, but what happens sometimes in a campaign is that you have some people who get so, I guess the word I use is zealots, and they say things that are totally preposterous. But you will notice I have disavowed myself from that individual and one other individual who also made racist, insensitive comments. So I don't condone that, and I've just basically totally distanced myself from them because there's no place for that anywhere in Deerfield Beach.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, this is a question that was given from the audience, and I would like to have a response from both candidates, if that's okay. I really like this question. Given the amount of corruption recently revealed at the national level, what are your plans to deal with this at the local level? Corruption on a local level. What are your plans to deal with corruption?
Who would you like to go first?
I'll give you that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is something that is very concerning to me, and it's one of the main reasons why I decided to run for office. There are some things where it's very hard to explain some of the reasoning and rationales sometimes for decisions that are made in Deerfield Beach. And I'm not going to say that I have a smoking gun picture of a brown paper bag with $100 bills hanging out of it, but sometimes you just have to wonder about the decision. So to specifically answer the question, what would I do to prevent that? I'm already on record before tonight and said at multiple public events that I would hire an auditor that reports directly to the commission, not to the city manager, not to the chief financial officer. And we would put him, probably it would be about a 6-month assignment where he would look at everything in Deerfield Beach, and not just monetary, but also, for example, we have a huge problem in procurement in this city. And he would look at the processes that the city is using when we choose a vendor or a big construction company, and look at the policies and procedures in place. And I think he would be able to really root out a lot of the problems that we're having with these constant, almost sometimes multi-million-dollar cost overruns. So I think that auditor who has the independence that he reports directly to the commission, I think that would go a long way to revealing and hopefully clearing up the cloud that exists over the commission at this point in time.
Vice Mayor, same question.
I just have to wait for the green light to come on, sorry. I would start by saying the question is faulty because it assumes that there's corruption. When it says corruption, my question back is what corruption? There's no corruption in the city of Deerfield Beach. We respond to auditors, we respond to the Attorney General. If you thought there was corruption in the city of Deerfield Beach, the Sun Sentinel would be all over us. The Office of the Attorney General would be all over us. The Office of the Inspector General would be all over us. We have the highest bond rating ever in the city of Deerfield Beach. We have auditors that audit our budget, that we get passing grades every single year. So I don't know what corruption the author of that question is thinking of, because it's absolutely false. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for over 30 years. I answer to the Florida bar. My bar license is far more important than anything else in my career, because that's my way of making a living. I am held to the highest ethical standard possible out there. I'm not going to compromise that for anybody or anything. And especially here in the city of Deerfield Beach, where we do everything by the book. So if there's any corruption, I would love to hear specifics. Don't just put the word corruption and throw it out there and think magically that there is corruption in the city, because there's not. It's like the Sesame word of the day, corruption. Sesame Street word of the day, corruption. People love to throw it out, but they can't give any specifics behind it, and that's because there aren't any. We have one of the best cities in Deerfield, in Broward County. We do more with less tax dollars than any other of the 31 cities, and I'm very proud of the budgets that we passed and the continuing obligations that we have with the city, because I just don't see it.
Well, Mr. Vice Mayor, since you have the mic and you are already on, what's your intention of expanding the Dixie corridor development?
That's another great question. So the Dixie Highway corridor has been left behind for many years, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One is the residents are wary of the city. The other is, if you look at the blocks as you go down Dixie Highway, one block could have multiple owners, and they have different goals for their properties. So getting everybody on the same page has been very difficult over the years. There's a reason why the last 40, 50 plus years, Dixie Highway looks the way that it does. Now, the Florida Department of Transportation did us no favors by putting the flyover and putting Dixie Highway where it did, splitting up that particular community east and west. But we have a lot of work to do. The number one thing that I would do going forward is, we have a gentleman in our economic development department right now, Bernard Jones. He is absolutely 100% underutilized. We need to let Bernard go and get out into the District 2 community and put the residents and the businesses and the city together. And on day one, I'm going to instruct the city manager to do that, to allow Mr. Jones to get out there and to talk to the residents and to get us all on the same page with respect to the Dixie Highway corridor. I am of the firm belief, and my vision is, it's just going to take one business to spark that corridor. You have one business, and then it's going to come in and spark the rest. Now, we have to be careful what development we have along the Dixie Highway corridor, because we don't want to become Pompano or Fort Lauderdale or Boca Raton. We want to keep our small town charm feel here in Deerfield Beach. So that's going to be an important aspect of the program as we go forward to coming up with the solution to the Dixie Highway corridor, but absolutely something has to be done. We have the western portion of our city, we have the beach, which is our economic engine, but Dixie Highway is the heart and soul of Deerfield Beach. Our city started here. We're in our centennial celebration, 100 years in Deerfield Beach. Our city, we're standing in an area where our city first had its roots. And so, soup's on in the back, everybody. But no, this corridor is absolutely one of my first priorities.
Thank you very much. And Dan, I'm going to give you a two-part question.
I don't get to answer that question?
I'm going to give you
Oh.
that. I'm going to give you the opportunity, but
Okay,
I'm going to
okay.
give it to you in a different way.
Okay.
Okay. You made a statement that you would like to have a 10% property reduction. What would be the cuts that you would bring to the city to make that 10% decrease?
So how does Dixie Highway fit into that question?
We got two parts. That's the
Okay.
first part.
All right. I will, as long as you get to it, because that's such an important issue.
Dan forgot that
Talk about it.
Patricia Williams is the moderator.
You got it. Okay.
So your question is, what would you do to reduce that 10% cut for the city of Deerfield?
Sure, and I've been asked this a lot, and I'm glad I have an opportunity to explain it to you, because what my opponents are doing is typical scare tactics. Say, hey, if we do that, then we're going to have to cut police and fire, and you'll be unsafe. Like I would, and any universe would suggest that we endanger the citizens by cutting police and fire. So first, let's talk about the dollar amount involved. We, in the last fiscal year, we received $60 million from property tax revenue. 10% of that is $6 million. So it's important to understand how much money we're talking about. I'm just going to give you two quick examples of where that $6 million would come from, specific, and then there'll be some generalities. But for specifics, a few years ago, we started something called a stormwater fund here in Deerfield Beach, and it was another tax, but they gave it a nicer name. So a couple years ago, they hired a consultant who came in and said, well, for this stormwater utility, you don't have a reserve against this utility. So what they suggested is, even though at the time we had a $32 million general reserve in Deerfield Beach, nope, not enough. You need to put aside $550,000 in reserve for a fund that collected about $2.3 million a year before. So I don't believe that you have to have a reserve for your reserve. So that's an example of $550,000. Also, about a little over a year ago, the city manager decided that if you used a credit card to pay for any city services, you were going to have to pay a fee. And he disclosed that that fee in the last fiscal year was $850,000. Now, in my opinion, that money should have gone back. So those two things alone are 1.4 million, and there's a lot of waste that I can easily make up the difference. So that $6 million is not an astronomical, and I want to again reiterate, we don't have to cut essential police and fire services to enjoy that cut that everybody should be entitled to. Because one last point, from the federal government under the ARPA Act, the city of Deerfield Beach received $23.1 million in the last 2 fiscal years. How much did the residents get in a tax break from that $23 million? The answer is 0. Thank you.
And then how would you expand the expansion of the Dixie Corridor development? What are your plans?
Sure. You know, it's gotten to the point where I think if we were ever going to rename Dixie Highway, we should rename it the Road of Broken Promises by the city of Deerfield Beach. I can't tell you how many times at commission meetings that I always attend where time after time we've been promised development on Dixie Highway. On Pioneer Grove, we just spent $4 million in the last fiscal year. Our city manager saying out loud with such fervor, if we build it, they will come. And unfortunately, those are all broken promises and broken dreams. I've already suggested at commission meetings one idea to spur development, and I'm going to give you another one here tonight. The one that I mentioned previously is to get that first developer in and make it a quality developer. You're going to have to incentivize that developer. And what I suggested was that that developer would not have to pay the portion of property taxes that goes to Deerfield Beach for 10 years. And that hopefully that would make it attractive enough to lure that first developer. The other idea, which I'm disclosing tonight, is when I become mayor, I'm going to sit down with those property owners who, Todd is correct, they don't trust the city at all. They don't want to hear whatever the city has to say because of years and years of being lied to. So if I get them in a room and I explain to them that I don't want you to sell your property completely to a developer, I want you to do a joint venture. I want you to hang on to 20-30% of your property, and that's the only way you're going to sell to a developer. So whatever they build, you're going to enjoy whatever they come up with. And I think we may see a little different attitude. What I never want to see happen again is what happened to Henry Hage, who some of you remember was the person who was supposed to build an apartment building at Dixie Highway and 14th Street. And right now we have a beautiful FP&L substation. And I don't think that's really what you call economic development. Thank you.
So then, are you in favor of the Pioneer Grover development?
I am not in favor of spending multi-millions of dollars on a new city hall, and I am on record of that, but I am in favor of a brand new combined police fire facility, because if the emergency times are good enough, there's no reason why we should have a dilapidated fire station on the corner of Hillsborough and Federal Highway. So as long as, again, that the safety times are not in jeopardy, take the money from that sale and use it towards a new police fire location. I think the city hall is going to benefit only the people in office who are in that building and want a fancy new building, because they see other municipalities getting them all around town, and they have building envy.
So, again, are you in favor of the Pioneer Grover redevelopment plan? Yes or no?
I am in favor of police and a new police and fire station and nothing
Thank
else.
you very much. Vice Mayor, same question.
About Pioneer Grove?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I am in favor of the Pioneer Grove. The money that we've invested in our downtown area so far is for infrastructure. So we need to put that in so we don't become the next Fort Lauderdale. We've all probably seen in the news, Fort Lauderdale has bursted pipes that has raw sewage flowing into the canals and their streets for years and years and years of lack of maintenance. They've taken those dollars and shifted them elsewhere, and they have not invested in their city. Infrastructure is not sexy, but it is critical to a municipal government that the infrastructure be kept up. And so if we don't do that, then we're going to be in the same situation as Fort Lauderdale, and I don't want to put a future commission in that scenario. So the Pioneer Grove area, we're putting in the infrastructure so that we can support future development in that area. Again, not Boca or Fort Lauderdale development, but development where we do have a new city hall, where we do have a new police station, where we do have new fire stations, which are falling apart on themselves. Those are critical assets that we need to improve here in our city, because if Fort Lauderdale ever gets its act together with respect to the commuter rail on the east tracks, because Deerfield Beach is in line for a station, that's going to tie right into our Pioneer Grove area. So you're going to have people coming to our city on the train, working, living, coming as tourists and visiting our city. That train station will tie into the Pioneer Grove area, which will tie into our City Hall area, which will tie into the police and fire as well. So we could create a new downtown area for Deerfield Beach. We have the Cove as a destination. We have the Four Corners out west as a destination, but we really don't have a true downtown area. And I think the City Hall area is an area that we can all be proud of in the future. Of course, it's going to take input by the residents. Absolutely 100%, and we don't want any large development there, so it's going to have to be compatible with the neighborhood, but we're going to have to do it in steps where we talk to the residents and the businesses and all of the additional interests that want to come into Deerfield Beach, because that could be a fantastic area with all those assets combined.
Since you both gave very extensive answers to that question, let's stay on that a little bit. I didn't hear neither one of you mention how you would actually draw small business owners in your community to actually be part of that expansion. How would you include the small business owners that's currently in your city to be part of that corridor expansion?
Who's first?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, my light's green, so I'll go. One of the first things that we have to do is we have to have better economic development in our city. The current economic development coordinator wears two hats. She wears economic development and also for the community redevelopment agency. We need one person who wears nothing but the economic development hat. One person who is an expert that will reach out to the businesses, not only that are in our city existing right now, but future businesses that are either around us or in states that want to come to Florida. Listen, we have a great economic environment here in the state of Florida. We have beautiful weather, we have no state income tax. Businesses are tripping over themselves to come to the state of Florida, and you can see that by the population growth that we're having in our state and in our own very city. So we don't want to be left behind, because there's a lot of businesses that we can attract, but we have to have the specific person in that role to do that. So I would insist the city manager have a full-time economic development coordinator to bring new businesses to the city of Deerfield Beach, and then we'll sell ourselves. I mean, we have the best beach in all of South Florida. We have some of the greatest assets around, and I just mentioned we're going to have the commuter rail station right here in our own back door. So we're going to have the commuter rail station. You have Dixie Highway, you have Hillsborough Boulevard, you have Southwest 10th Street, you have I-95, the Sawgrass Expressway, the Turnpike. We have lots of opportunities for businesses and those that want to be in our city to come to our city. And that's one way of doing it, but economic development is going to be the key.
Well, in going around the city, and campaigning, you learn an awful lot. I knew a lot to begin with, but a lot of things got reinforced to me. There are so many roadblocks that our current building department puts up, and that it inhibits the growth of small businesses. Why should they want to go into Deerfield Beach, who is so uninviting, when they can go to another town where the red carpet is laid out for them? So I've already said publicly, I'm a very straight shooter, I've already said that the company that handles our building department and our code enforcement, Calvin Giordano and Associates, their contract is mercifully up September 30th of this year, and I will not, under any circumstances, renew their contract, and I will bring the building department back in-house. And then you have at least you have accountability, and we can try to then lure small businesses being so open for them. And another point on that, and this is a very big difference between Todd and myself. Todd only last night at a different forum on the very eastern part on the ocean, publicly for the first time criticized Economic Director Chris Morey. I have been criticizing her for years, not because I don't like her, but because her job performance was very lacking and it was evident to anybody. But in the good old boys network that exists right now, she was protected and coddled. And now, because Todd got an earful from the people last night about all the closed businesses on the S-curve, he doesn't want to blame himself. So he's finally admitting something that many people who follow the city have known for an awful long time.
Okay, next question. What will you do to ensure the residents of Deerfield Beach that their homes will not be turned into the hands of developers?
I'll take that first. Well, in order, you have simple economic principles. Nobody, thank God, is being forced to sell their home to developers. The problem that we have is that large parcels of land that should not have been developed because of their zoning, we're finding that the zoning is changing on these large lots, enabling developers to put up, in this case just in December, very recent history, right on Federal Highway, a 237 unit apartment complex. And that, the zoning on there did not allow it, but Todd and two other people voted with the developer. They were able to change the zoning, destroy the character and nature of that neighborhood overnight. That will not happen with me, and that is the best way to prevent developers from taking over too much. But unfortunately, Todd has a voting record of voting with the developer every single time. And it's interesting that most of the developers hire a specific attorney by the name of Dennis Maley, and Dennis has never lost a case. He brags he's never lost a case of rezoning in front of the Deerfield Beach Commission.
So longevity in office has its benefits, because clearly my opponent has no idea how the system works, and he just demonstrated that to you tonight. Because with the apartment complex issue that he was talking about, there was a live local counter proposal that was filed by the developer. There was either a 5-story option or a 7-story option. So the 7-story option was filed with the city and ready to go, and the 5-story option wasn't available. We were there to talk to the developer, to try and negotiate. Ms. Bolowicz is here tonight. I met with you and your attorney and residents to come up with a solution, and you said you were not interested in negotiating.
That's untrue.
That is absolutely true. I was there. You said that you were not interested in negotiating with the developer, and what happened? You got the 5-story building instead of the 7-story.
It was your
So now,
rezoning in the
this is
first
my-
place
This is
for
my
that
question.
time.
This is my question. This is my question.
Excuse me.
That is wrong.
Excuse me.
That is wrong.
We're going to be respectful to each other, allow them to answer the question, and afterward, I would allow the residents here to actually ask questions themselves, okay?
Yes, but I cannot let the facts go unrebutted in this particular situation.
you're out of order.
Because everybody's trying to paint me into a particular corner that I'm pro-developer, but you were going to get stuck with a 7-story building and not a 5-story building instead. If you wanted a 7-story building, then we should have voted no, and you would have been far worse off. But I thought that the 5-story building was a better option than those. So as far as taking away the people's residences, that's not going to happen. It's private property. The developer would have to come to an agreement with those residents, and if they agree, they can agree, and if they don't, but the property and the project has to make sense for that to happen. And so to answer the question that was asked, I don't see that happening.
Can't answer a question properly.
And I'm skipping over a couple of questions because I think they're redundant of what we have already asked. Next question, Mr. Hurst, when did you move to Deerfield Beach and where do you live in Deerfield?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because it's amazing when your opponents have nothing on you, what they resort to is pathetic. So let's try to settle this once and for all in the time frame. And unfortunately, I have to answer this question by delving into my personal life, but if that's what it takes to silence people who have nothing better to talk about than this, then so be it. In 2018, I moved up permanently to Deerfield Beach. I am estranged from my wife who lives in Plantation. In 2018, I disavowed my homestead, and I have the proof of it right here if anybody wants to see the email from the Broward County Property Appraiser's office. But because I am technically still married, it is against the law to get another homesteaded property in Deerfield Beach. So I am not allowed, unless I want to break the law, to have the property that I've lived in for the last 7+ years to get it as a homestead. And also, I think this has to be said too. We have a wonderful clerk in Deerfield Beach, and one of her main responsibilities is to check out and make sure that the person lives where he says he lives in order to run. And I ran in 2019. I was thoroughly vetted, and now I've been thoroughly vetted again. But when they have nothing else to throw at you, they throw dirt. So hopefully this may be, hopefully, the last time I'll have to answer that question.
Thank you very much, sir. Vice Mayor, will you form a charter review committee?
Well, that has already happened in the city of Deerfield Beach. The commission has approved the establishment of a charter review commission. That will go into effect after the election, and then the commission will select individuals from the community to serve on that charter review committee and make recommendations to the commission. So it is ultimately up to the commission to make the decision whether any charter review proposals go to the voters or not. But the charter review committee is in the works, and after the March election will be put together, and the residents can make proposals going forward. And I would like to just also say that, you know, there's no good old boy network here in the city of Deerfield Beach. We're not protecting any particular directors in our city, so that just doesn't exist as well.
Thank you very much. What would you do to address the independent businesses like food trucks for being able to operate in Deerfield without harassing them with fees and excessive fees for inspection? So going back to the small business owner, apparently this person is has a food truck.
No, it's my question. I don't have a food truck, but I conduct events all over the county of Broward, and other cities and within the county, they allow their food trucks to participate in events, and they don't charge ridiculous prices they don't allow their fire department or police departments to charge ridiculous prices for inspections. And they also have food truck nights in their cities,
Right.
which really promotes a sense of community.
Right.
So it's an opportunity for the community to come together and get to know each other and just, just hang out with each other, right? And it's also a benefit, an economic benefit for those independent business owners who have their food trucks to make ends meet.
So your question
My
is,
question is the city of Deerfield Beach going to start being just as open as the city of Plantation, the city of Tamarack, Coral Springs, Coconut Creek, when it comes to food truck businesses, independent businesses, allowing communities to have nights of community?
so a sense of community.
A sense of community, and are you going to be supportive of these small independent businesses?
Vice Mayor, you want to start that out?
Yeah, since we're in church, I'm going to say amen to that. Absolutely. Actually, one of Avery's and I's best friends owns a food truck, and so it's not in the city of Deerfield Beach, but we've seen how those businesses operate, and it is absolutely fantastic. Food trucks are the wave of the future, to be honest with you. Mobile restaurants that are going around, and they promote sense of community as well. And that sometimes they have like a food truck night. Some of them are specifically to like Mexican food one night, or Caribbean food one night, or you have all of the trucks come out on a particular night. So we need to not have those not just at our festivals and our events, but around our city. I know we had one in District 4 where the food truck actually came from Miami, and they were featured on one of the Food Networks for seafood, actually. So not only is it a sense of community, but it's actually darn good food too, to be honest with you. So yes, I'm in favor of that. I've seen it firsthand. We have a friend who participates in that. So if we're charging too much for our inspections, that's something that we can look at for sure. Now there's an element of safety too. I'm all about public safety. So you have to ensure that the food trucks are safe. When you're inviting the public out to your food truck or to your establishment, you have to make sure that it's safe for the public to come. So that's an element that I don't want to overlook, is the public safety element. But if there's a way around that without being a hindrance to the businesses, I think that's a great idea going forward. So yes, absolutely, I've seen it firsthand.
And not just sourcing out, but allowing the food truck business owners that live here in the city or from here from the city to have first dibs on the spots.
So what I find always fascinating, now that Todd and I have done a bunch of these and we still have more to go, when he pretends like this is the very first time he's hearing about this problem and, oh, I'm going to look into it and do something about it. I've heard of this problem, and what it takes is leadership, not just to sit there and close your eyes to the problem. I'm a small business owner. I have been for almost 40 years. I understand what a small business owner goes through. Todd is a foreclosure attorney. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he approaches things from a totally different perspective than I do as a small business owner. So definitely what it would take is to, again, when we switch the company that is in charge of many of the things, to get the proper permits and and to follow up with the inspections, we're going to make life easier. I want to have it where people start saying, oh, Deerfield Beach, they're really, finally, they're with it. They've changed their attitude towards small businesses. I want to be there, other than hearing the horror stories that I keep hearing over and over again.
Thank you very much. And this is another question. What building department are better? And why? We have more than one building department?
Move on, next question.
Oh, what we have is Calvin Giordano and Associates.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the question there, absolutely. But I will add, Madam Moderator, to insinuate that I don't know about small businesses is also likewise untrue. In my law firm, I am partner of the law firm as well for a multi-state law firm. I am the Florida partner for managing the Florida office. So not only do I manage employees, but have my Florida budget as well. So I run the Florida law firm. So to say that I don't know anything about small businesses outside of City Hall is just not true.
Next question. How can the city of Deerfield Beach offset the fire department pension taxpayers are burdened with?
I guess I think it's my turn to go first. This is something that I've paid an awful lot of attention to the last year. And I first want to say that the question that Ms. Williams asked has nothing to do with the formula that's been in place for years of how we determine what the firefighter's pension is going to be. So I want to make that very, very clear. They put their lives on the line for us. The formula's in place. I would never, ever consider trying to change that formula. But what I discovered, and there's one other gentleman in the audience who I dragged with me, and we've been to the last 4 quarterly fire pension board meetings. And also just to back up and to explain why it's so important, the last 2 fiscal years, the city of Deerfield Beach has had to pay $7.5 million per year to keep the fire pension fund actuarially sound. Now, the way the fire pension board is set up, there's 5 people on the board. The city picks 2, the firefighters pick 2, and the 5th one is agreed on by those 4. So when you go to this meeting, you see that there's a nice gentleman who's looks nice enough by the name of Burgess Chambers. And I asked at one of them, actually it was the very last meeting that I attended, I said, how long has Burgess Chambers been the investment advisor for the fund? The answer I received was, well, for forever, 25 plus years, as long as it's been in place. I then asked the chairman, I said, well, when was the last time you did a request for proposal to bring in another manager to just see what he's offering? Well, the answer was never. So why this is so important is because when I was given the financials to what they were investing at that time was $150 million, I found that they were sorely lacking behind. If they would just use a simple equity fund that everybody's heard of, like the S&P 500 fund, which they only had a small percentage of their assets in, they would have had $30 million more in their account at the end of 2023. And I brought this to the attention of the City Commission time and again, and the answer I get is, oh, we can't say a word about this. But the lying part of that is they can speak to their 2 representatives on the board and bring up these topics. And for some unknown reason, they fail to ever do that.
Vice Mayor, same question.
So, correct. We have 2 members on the 5-member board, so the city cannot have control over the fire pensions. It's a state statutory formula, so to think that we can tinker with the formula or the dollars is just not true. We don't have that ability and capability to do that going forward. And to think that we haven't talked to our representatives and told them, and educated them on this particular issue also is not true. But to think now that, okay, I'm going to throw out amateur investment advice and throw out numbers to you, and now you have to believe it that there's this $30 million shortfall, I mean, it seems to be a little presumptuous that we're going to give advice on the fly to the experts tonight on how to do their jobs. Those are experts that are controlling the fund and do so every day. And to come in tonight and say, well, I think I can do better, just doesn't make any sense to me.
Can I do one comment follow-up, because it's important? If that was true, then why has the investment advisor been in place forever?
Mr. Hurst, what would be the first thing that you would do that's most important to you if elected as our mayor?
Sure. The most important thing I would have to do, the first thing would be to reevaluate the city manager that was just hired by the city, Rodney Brimlow. Rodney Brimlow was hired, and we've kept this practice up of hiring people from within who have absolutely no experience in being a city manager. Now, for Rodney's credit, he knows a lot about public safety, and a small percentage of being a city manager involves public safety. But it involves an awful lot of other things which Mr. Brimlow has no experience whatsoever. And I've been watching him very closely from when he took over as interim city manager, and that's almost 5 months from now. I've asked him many questions. He's yet to answer a single one of them. So unless I see a vast improvement after I become mayor, one of the first things I have to do is, again, have a new search for a city manager with experience and also not from South Florida.
Thank you very much, sir. Vice Mayor, you have served as our Vice Mayor and Commissioner for years. What will be your first business of order if elected as a mayor for the city of Deerfield?
The first business, so first of all, let me just talk quickly about the city manager. We did a national search for the city manager. It was shortlisted by a recruiter to 9 candidates. The commission then shortlisted that to 4 candidates. None of the 4 candidates were prior city managers. So regardless who was going to be picked, none of them was a prior city manager before. Mr. Brimlow of the 4 had the best experience in my option. He knew Deerfield Beach. As the former captain of ESO, he knows our streets inside and out. He knows our communities. He knows our residents. He knows our budget. So he had a leg up on all of the competition. So he's going to be a good city manager going forward, and I'm looking forward to working with him. But as far as on day one, there's 2 things really. One is how our meetings are run. I'm going to run the meetings more like a municipal corporation. We are a $361 million corporation. You don't walk into Walt Disney to their board meeting and get to ask a bunch of questions on the fly. We're going to have staff there that are going to take questions and give you responses that you deserve instead of giving these answers on the fly that sometimes creates confusion, creates conflict. That doesn't make sense. I don't think a meeting should be run that way. The other issue, which we have not even touched upon yet, is Southwest 10th Street. I'm going to continue to work with the Florida Department of Transportation like I have for the last 12 years because that project is set to go to construction this fall. And if you don't think that's going to disrupt you no matter where you live in this city, you're absolutely kidding yourself. That project is going to shift traffic off of 10th Street on the Hillsborough Boulevard, which is already an F-graded road, by the way, to Southwest 18th Street in Boca Raton, to Sample Road, to Green Road, to Power Line, and to Military Trail and to Federal Highway. Every corner of our city is going to be affected by this project. I'm the only candidate that has worked with FDOT in the last 12 years on that particular project. I will ensure that not only do we continue to get our benefits from them as far as monetary, but working with them that when traffic is diverted, that is done the best way possible with the most modern AI technology so that our residents are not constantly caught in traffic for the next 5 years.
Next question is coming from me. If you are elected as our mayor for the city of Deerfield, what would you do to make the Black area feel comfortable that you will be a voice for them as problems occur in the city of Deerfield? Vice Mayor?
I think the African American community is already comfortable with me. I've been commissioner for 8 years. I've been in District 2. I go to every single event that's humanly possible. I'm known wildly for the green shirt that I wear to every single event. I think people recognize me for that. And that's going to absolutely continue. So I think District 2 already knows me. There's some small things that we can do. For example, the mayor's prayer breakfast. We've gotten off track with that. That needs to be on a regular basis, at least on a quarterly basis. It got to on a biannual basis. That needs to be on a quarterly basis and make sure that we hold it continuously to invite members to the community to come. In addition to that, I think our pastors are one of our greatest resources here in Deerfield Beach. We have some absolutely fantastic pastors and preachers and reverends and bishops in our community. From Pastor Knowles, who is here tonight, or Dr. Knowles, I should take that, to Pastor Dowdy, to Pastor Fillmore, to Bishop Dowdy and Bishop Held. They all are integral resources in this community. So I would put like a pastors committee together from day one because they know this community best. They know their residents. They worship with them. They know their children. They know their fears. They know their dreams and their goals. So who better to put together to have like a red ribbon commission of pastors together to come together and basically talk about the issues that we have going forward. And that goes to the Dixie Highway corridor as well, because they know those businesses and they know the residents that live along there, and they can help put us all together in that same room and come to a common agreement and solution going forward. And with the help of Bernard Jones, who is African American, by the way. So let's just get the elephant out of the room. We need a city African American resident in District 2 to talk to that community. And I think that's going to go a long way to build the trust back.
Okay, thank you. You know, this question is probably the most important question tonight. I'm going to give you two very recent examples, and I don't even blame Todd and Mayor Gans. I just don't think they understand how they continuously slight the black community here in Deerfield Beach. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. Please, I'd like to give you examples. I only deal with facts.
Hello, allow me to answer the question, please.
Just 2 nights ago, the commission approved $127,000 for the restart the Packer Rattlers. That's wonderful. I got up there and said I'm totally in support of that. But it was what came next that was so hard to listen to. The city manager said the Packer Rattlers will be subject to a financial audit of their all of their tax returns, financials, etc. An audit. Now, I went up there and I said, wait a second here. The Deerfield Beach Historical Society just got $450,000 the last 2 years. More than triple this $127,000 we're talking about. But they didn't have to submit an audit to the city about their finances. The same thing with the Kiwanis Club East of Deerfield Beach, who gets thousands of dollars of revenue from the city, allowing them to rent out their the bus benches for advertising. But we didn't ask them for audited financial statements. And I don't understand what's good for one should be good for the other. And so if you're insinuating that the Packer Rattlers and the wonderful new board of directors that was just put in place, if they need some special overseeing, well, then why don't we have that for everybody? Because those other two groups, they could have a rogue person who steals money also.
Exactly.
So that's just one example, and if you allow me another 10 seconds, I'll give you the second one very quickly. The second one, Todd was the sponsor in January of 24 of level 2 criminal background checks. Now, the one thing that was in there that wasn't talked about a lot is that if you have been arrested, if you are arrested, not convicted, if you're arrested, you are not allowed to coach the Packer Rattlers. Now, the state just brought in their own rule for this starting January 1st of this year. That wording of arrest was nowhere in the state statute. So why was this put into, which Todd sponsored? Why was that in there? I've never gotten a straight answer. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, this one is for you. Is it true that Coconut Creek may or have filed a lawsuit against the city because of the expansion of the dump?
Let me respond to the other question quickly first. So with respect to the Packer Rattlers, the reason they have a financial audit is because the previous board misappropriated money. Let's not kid ourselves. Money was missing. That's taxpayer dollars. That's your dollars as residents. You have every right to deserve where that money goes. With respect to the level 2 background checks, I will not back down from that for a second, because I am here to protect our children who are playing football. This is public safety. Mr. Hers, if you want to compromise the safety of the children in the city, you go right on ahead. But me, I am not for 1 second going to compromise public safety of our children in this city. The question was, has Coconut Creek filed a lawsuit against the city of Deerfield Beach? The answer is no. They have filed a lawsuit against waste management, and I believe the county as well, to stop the expansion of the dump. It's an option for the city of Deerfield Beach to join that lawsuit.
That
There's
is a
actually
lie.
a meeting next Tuesday at the county commission, February 25th, 10:30 time certain now, where I'll be there and the mayor will be there fighting the expansion both horizontally and vertically in this city, because it's a stick in the eye to our residents to increase the height of that dump when we have residential around there. If the county commission votes yes to approve the expansion, then I do believe that joining the Coconut Creek lawsuit is an option that we need to consider, and I would actually be in favor of it.
Okay, next question. The governor has said that he would get rid of property taxes. How are the city funded? And if getting rid of property taxes, what will you do to fund the city?
I'll tackle that first. I have to admit, I have not heard that yet, that he wants to eliminate all property taxes? Okay, that one I must have missed. If something that bizarre did get passed and we had to eliminate property taxes, I've already given you the figure earlier this evening. We would have to come up with $60 million to replace that property tax revenue.
Yes.
A lot of us in the city would have to get together and really have a hard talk about how we're going to replace that kind of money. That's not something that you can do overnight. So unfortunately, obviously you cannot touch fire and police and safety, anything with safety. So you'd have to look at the other portion of the budget and see what we can cut out to replace that $60 million.
Vice Mayor?
So the good news being in office 8 years, I already have the relationships with our state legislatures and representatives. I'll call Ron after this meeting and tell him that the idea is misplaced because it would be absolutely 100% detrimental to cities to cut out property taxes. That is how cities survive. That is our number one source of revenue to provide services to the residents. So if that idea is misplaced, I would talk to our lobbying firm that we have with the city. I would talk to our state representative, our state senator, and the governor himself to basically advocate that that's a bad idea and really is dead in the water.
Vice Mayor, a few years ago, we had the Civil Service Board in District 2, which was made up of some of the prominent community members. What's your thought, and why did you think it was good to get rid of it?
So the Civil Service Board was too random and arbitrary in their decisions. It was made of residents. So sometimes you have people that were voting for their buddies or making deals with their buddies that, hey, you can be on, you can be off, or whatever. So we switched to a magistrate system instead. We're a neutral third party that does not have a vested interest in the city of Deerfield Beach. Essentially, a judge makes that determination. That's more fair, it's more transparent, and it's basically an opportunity for the person who's aggrieved to make their case. You make your case to the judge, and the judge is either going to agree with you or not agree with you, but basically to be judge, jury, and executioner by your peers was a system that was not working, and so going to a more fair system with a neutral judge makes a lot more sense.
We have come to the end of the road. Set an hour that we were going to allow each candidate to answer questions. At this time, I'm going to give each one of our candidates 1 minute to speak to our resident and let them know why you feel that you should hold the title of city mayor for the city of Deerfield.
Sure, thank you. You know, I spend an awful lot of time studying, researching what goes on in commission meetings, reading every page of the backup that I'm allowed to see, because the commissioners get a lot more information than I'm entitled to. And then I try to fill in the massive holes by doing freedom of information requests. The only reason why I am running for mayor is because I'm sick and tired of watching all of the money that this city wastes on a myriad of different areas. And everybody is taken care of except for the taxpayers. And I think it's time that someone who has the knowledge, the financial background, the real estate background, and would bring in experts to help out in areas that I may not be that sophisticated in, I think that's the way to really change what's been going on here and stop wasting all the hard-earned taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. So I want to appreciate everybody coming out, Madam Moderator for moderating tonight, but it all comes down to experience. The Sun Sentinel interview has made it very clear that I am the only candidate for mayor here in Deerfield Beach. I've been endorsed by the police, by the fire, by the Broward Teachers Union, by the Hispanic vote. It's a cross-section of our community that know our leaders best, and they have determined that I am in best position to lead this city forward going for the next 8 years. We have a lot to accomplish in Deerfield Beach, and we have to do it together, but we need somebody that has the temperament, the knowledge, the experience, the background, and the vision to do that. And I'm the only candidate in this race with that. I've talked to you about the issues tonight and the challenges that we have going forward. So I look forward to working with all of you with that. We're going to do this together. But as far as the election is concerned, it comes down to, as I said at the beginning, experience and vision. And that is the only thing that I'm going forward on with this election. And I think that I have the best credentials in this race. Thank you. With a audio that's being circulated throughout District 2 that is edited from a 2018 commission meeting, which was an extremely long meeting. And during that meeting, we discussed a plethora of issues, one of those being the dump, Mount Trashmore, and another issue being the Packer Rattlers. So during my closing comments while addressing both of those issues, residents from District 2 have twisted that video to somehow, in some way, shape, or form, to think that I was insinuating that our youth football should be playing on the dump at Mount Trashmore. That is preposterous. It's downright, it is just stupid, to be honest with you, and it makes no sense. There is no way, shape, or form, or any planet that I would want our youth, the Packer Rattlers, playing on anything but the best fields here in Deerfield Beach. So to insinuate otherwise is out of line. It's dirty politics. I'm aware of the video and the audio that is circulating in this community, but I can tell you as I'm watching the cameras and you, that is absolutely 100% false, and the people behind it should be shameful of themselves for even insinuating that.